Sergeant Lucas Blackwood had always believed that leather-bound journals were private sanctuaries, which was roughly equivalent to believing that plasma storms gave advance notice before turning archaeological expeditions into exercises in survival planning. His personal journal, carefully tucked beneath his bedroll each night, contained observations that would have made his medical corps instructors question whether he'd learned anything about maintaining professional boundaries during interspecies operations. The joint archaeological expedition on Viridian Prime hummed with the controlled excitement of scientists making discoveries that would rewrite xenoarchaeological textbooks. As the expedition's field medic, Lucas had grown accustomed to treating everything from minor cuts sustained while excavating ancient ruins to the occasional allergic reaction when team members encountered unfamiliar alien spore formations. Personal Journal, Day 847, he'd written the previous evening, his pen moving across paper with the deliberate care of someone documenting something precious. Princess Liana spent 14 hours cataloging hieroglyphs in the lower temple complex today. When she's deciphering ancient languages, she gets this expression like she's having conversations with civilizations that died before humans learned to build cities. It's like watching someone conduct symphonies of forgotten knowledge. Lucas paused in his morning medical inventory to glance toward the excavation site, where Princess Liana Starweaver moved through the ancient ruins with the fluid grace that had inspired months of his private documentation. Most people saw her as the Celestian royal who'd surprised everyone by choosing xenoarchaeology over diplomatic service. Lucas saw someone who approached every artifact like she was honoring the memory of its creators. Her bioluminescent skin caught the morning light filtering through Viridian Prime's unusual atmosphere, creating patterns that shifted like living artwork across her features. The luminescent silver of her complexion contrasted beautifully with her violet eyes, and her movements through the archaeological site carried a kind of unconscious elegance that made even mundane tasks look like ceremonial dances. She doesn't just study dead civilizations, he'd written weeks earlier. She mourns them. Today I watched her spend an hour sitting quietly beside a children's toy we uncovered, like she was making sure its young owner wouldn't be forgotten. Sometimes I think she feels responsible for preserving every lost soul in the galaxy. His journal entries had started as professional observations, notes about team dynamics, medical concerns, the kind of documentation any good field medic might maintain for mission reports. But somewhere around day 200, they transformed into something more personal. Sketches of Liana's profile while she worked. Analysis of her research methods. Philosophical reflections about what it meant to dedicate your life to understanding beings who existed only in the artifacts they'd left behind. Day 848, he wrote. Princess Liana hummed something that sounded like a lullaby while working alone in the temple chambers last night. She told me later it was an ancient Celestian song her grandmother used to sing, something about guiding lost spirits home. I think she sings to the ruins like she's comforting whatever echoes might still linger in the stones. The expedition's proximity alarms interrupted his writing, followed by the automated voice of their base station AI, Plasma Storm Detected, bearing 127 Mark 43. All personnel implement emergency shelter protocols immediately. Lucas groaned and secured his medical supplies. Plasma storms were Viridian Prime's way of reminding archaeological teams that ancient civilizations might have chosen more hospitable planets for good reasons. The expedition would weather the electromagnetic interference fine, but emergency protocols always turned organized archaeological sites into controlled chaos. What he didn't anticipate, as he gathered his gear and prepared for the storm's arrival, was that emergency evacuations had a tendency to scatter personal belongings in ways that made privacy a casualty of survival procedures. The plasma storm hit 6 hours later, washing over their temporary shelter in cascades of charged particles that made the ancient ruins glow with ethereal light. Lucas felt the familiar sensation of electromagnetic fields playing havoc with their equipment as the expedition team huddled in the reinforced chambers they'd established in the most stable section of the archaeological site. Emergency lighting cast everything in soft blue illumination that made Princess Liana's bioluminescent skin patterns more pronounced, her emotional responses visible in the shifting colors that flowed across her features like living poetry. She moved through the shelter checking on team members with the same careful attention she brought to cataloging artifacts. Medical supplies, she asked, approaching Lucas's station with an armload of equipment that had been scattered during the evacuation. All accounted for, Lucas replied, then noticed what she was carrying. Though I think some of my personal gear got mixed in with the expedition equipment. Princess Lyanna held up his leather-bound journal, her violet eyes reflecting uncertainty as she processed its significance. I found this beneath some excavation tools. I couldn't help but notice, well, I saw my name while trying to determine whose belongings these were. The blood drained from Lucas's face with the efficiency of a medical emergency. His journal, containing 848 days of professional observations, personal reflections, and what could charitably be described as artistic documentation of his feelings for the Celestian princess, was being held by the woman who was the subject of his most private thoughts. "That's mine," he said, his voice carrying the hollow quality of someone who just realized his deepest secrets were no longer secret. Princess Lyanna's bioluminescent patterns shifted through colors that Lucas recognized as Celestian expressions of complex emotion, surprise, curiosity, and something that might have been hope. She opened the journal to a page marked with a loose sketch, and he caught a glimpse of his own artwork depicting her hands as she worked with ancient artifacts. "You wrote about me," she whispered, her voice trembling with something between wonder and vulnerability. The question hung in the air like charged particles from the storm outside, carrying implications that made the shelter feel simultaneously too small and vast as space itself. Lucas realized that every careful observation, every artistic attempt to capture her essence, every private reflection about the loneliness he saw behind her royal composure was about to either destroy their professional relationship or transform it into something neither of them had expected. Princess Lyanna's violet eyes met his across the shelter's emergency lighting, her expression carrying the same careful intensity she brought to deciphering ancient languages, as if she were trying to understand a mystery that might change everything she thought she knew about her place in the universe. Princess Lyanna's bioluminescent skin patterns cycled through what Lucas had learned to recognize as the Celestian equivalent of emotional processing, soft blues indicating contemplation, brief flashes of silver suggesting surprise, and underlying currents of pale gold that he'd never seen before but somehow understood meant hope. Her hands trembled slightly as she held his journal, and Lucas found himself cataloging her reactions with the same careful attention he'd been documenting for months. "I was searching for medical supplies," she said, her voice carrying the careful precision she used when presenting archaeological findings to expedition leadership. "When I saw the scattered equipment, I tried to organize everything by owner. But when I opened this to find identification..." She gestured toward a page that contained one of his more detailed sketches of her working in the temple complex. Heat flooded Lucas's face with the intensity of a solar flare. "Princess, I can explain." "Can you?" She moved closer, settling onto a supply crate across from his medical station with the fluid motion he described in day 623. "Because I've been reading your observations for the past hour, and I'm not entirely certain I understand what I've discovered." She opened the journal to what Lucas recognized as day 445, where he'd written extensively about her method of approaching unknown artifacts, the way she would circle them slowly, her bioluminescent patterns shifting as she processed potential cultural contexts before making physical contact. "You wrote, Princess Lyanna approaches each artifact like she's being introduced to a new friend. Her skin patterns shift through what I think are emotional preparations, respect, curiosity, anticipation. She's not just studying dead civilizations, she's honoring living memories," she read aloud. "That's technically accurate," Lucas managed, his voice resembling something that might emerge from a malfunctioning communication device. Lyanna's patterns shifted to include deeper blues, and Lucas caught a glimpse of something that might have been wonder. "In my entire life, no one has ever documented my work methods with such personal attention." "Your entire life?" Lucas asked, his medical training automatically noting the way her luminescence dimmed slightly. "Royal documentation focuses on political significance and diplomatic achievements," she explained, her voice carrying a sadness that made Lucas's chest tight. "State historians record Princess Lyanna's contributions to interspecies relations, her archaeological discoveries, her role in maintaining Celestian cultural preservation initiatives. But no one has ever written about the way I hum lullabies to ancient ruins or spend extra time with artifacts that seem particularly lonely. She flipped through several pages, her violet eyes scanning text that made Lucas want to disappear into the planet's crystalline caves. Here's an entry about how I arrange newly discovered artifacts according to what you call emotional aesthetics, placing items that seem sad next to ones that feel hopeful. I noticed you do that, Lucas said quietly. It seemed kind. Kind, she repeated, testing the word like she was examining unfamiliar technology. State records don't typically include assessments of kindness. Their conversation was interrupted by the expedition's communication array coming back online after the plasma storm's electromagnetic interference. Dr. Helena Vance's voice crackled through the speakers with the authority of someone accustomed to managing complex archaeological operations. All teams report status. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the deeper temple complexes. The storm appears to have activated dormant systems throughout the archaeological site. Princess Liona's demeanor shifted immediately, her attention moving from personal revelation to professional crisis. Lucas watched her transformation with familiar fascination, the way her bioluminescent patterns organized into what he'd learned indicated focused analytical thinking. Energy signatures, she said, moving to the communication console with the efficient grace he'd documented in dozens of entries. Dr. Vance, are we talking about power sources or defensive systems? Unknown, Princess. We need your expertise in xenoarchaeological systems analysis. The reading suggests technology that's been dormant for millennia suddenly responding to electromagnetic stimulation. Lucas found himself speaking before his medical training could advise caution. Princess, your research methods, the way you approach unknown systems, could be crucial for understanding whatever's been activated. Every member of the expedition team who could hear turned to stare at him with expressions that suggested offering archaeological advice to Celestian royalty was either remarkably insightful or completely presumptuous. Explain, Lioness said, her voice carrying the same focused attention she brought to deciphering alien languages. Your approach to artifacts, Lucas said, pulling out his journal and flipping to relevant entries. The way you prepare emotionally before making contact, the patterns your skin shows when you're processing cultural contexts, what if those aren't just research methods? What if they're actually communication protocols? Understanding began dawning in her remarkable violet eyes. You think my emotional responses to archaeological sites might be activating dormant systems? I think your bioluminescent patterns might be a form of interspecies communication that the ancient civilization built into their technology, Lucas said, his xenobiological fascination combining with months of careful observation. The way you unconsciously shift through emotional preparations when approaching artifacts, what if that's triggering responses from systems designed to recognize Celestian bioelectric signatures? Dr. Vance's voice came through the communicator again, carrying increased urgency. Princess, we're getting reports of activated systems throughout the complex. Some appear to be scanning devices, others might be environmental controls. We need immediate analysis. Princess Liona looked at Lucas's journal, then at him, her expression carrying something that might have been gratitude mixed with professional excitement. Your observations about my work patterns, they're not just personal documentation, are they? They're both, Lucas admitted. I started documenting your methods because I found them fascinating from a xenobiological perspective. But somewhere along the way, it became more personal. More personal how? She asked, her voice carrying the same careful curiosity she used when examining particularly intriguing artifacts. More personal like. I started writing about how beautiful you are when you're lost in your work. How your dedication to honoring dead civilizations makes you the most remarkable person I've ever encountered. How watching you work has been the best part of every day for the past 848 days. The shelter fell silent except for the steady hum of emergency systems and the distant whisper of the plasma storm dissipating outside. Princess Liona's bioluminescent patterns shifted through colors Lucas had never seen before, complex combinations that suggested emotional states he couldn't identify but somehow found beautiful. Lucas, she said softly, I need to tell you something. What? Reading your journal was the first time anyone has ever made me feel truly seen as a person rather than a political figure or a research asset. Her patterns shifted to what looked like pale starlight. And right now, with ancient alien technology responding to my presence in ways we don't understand, I think we need each other more than either of us anticipated. The communication array crackled with another urgent message from Dr. Vance. Princess, the energy readings are spiking. Whatever systems have been activated, they're building towards something significant. We need immediate response. Princess Lioness stood, gathering her archaeological equipment with practiced efficiency. Lucas, would you be willing to accompany me into the temple complex? Your observations about my methods might be crucial for understanding what we're dealing with. Always, Lucas said, securing his medical supplies and realizing that his private documentation was about to become the foundation for the most important archaeological discovery in galactic history. As they prepared to venture deeper into ruins that were now humming with ancient power, he caught one more glimpse of her remarkable bioluminescent patterns and realized that sometimes the most valuable research happened when personal feelings and professional expertise combined in ways that transformed both the observer and the observed. The deeper temple complex had transformed from ancient archaeological site into something resembling a living organism made of crystalline technology and light. As Lucas and Princess Liana descended through corridors that hummed with newly awakened power, his journal entries provided unexpected guidance for navigating systems that had been dormant since before humans developed written language. According to day 623, Lucas said, consulting his observations while scanning for potential medical hazards, you always pause at threshold points and let your bioluminescent patterns shift through what I called respectful greeting protocols before entering new archaeological spaces. Princess Liana stood at the entrance to what appeared to be the complex's central chamber, her skin patterns cycling through the same sequence Lucas had documented dozens of times. But now, instead of simply marking her emotional preparation, the patterns triggered visible responses from the ancient walls. Geometric designs that flowed like liquid starlight, responding to her presence with what could only be described as recognition. It's working, she whispered, wonder evident in her voice as the temple complex acknowledged her approach. The technology is reading my bioelectric signatures as some kind of communication protocol. Communication with whom? Lucas asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The builders, Liana said, moving deeper into the chamber with the careful attention he'd observed and recorded for months. This isn't just technology, it's a preservation system. The ancient civilization built their cultural memory into the architecture itself. The central chamber revealed itself as something beyond conventional archaeological discovery. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing scenes from the daily life of beings who'd inhabited this world millennia ago. Lucas watched Princess Liana's face as she processed visual records of children playing, artists creating, families sharing meals, moments of ordinary beauty preserved in crystalline memory banks. They knew their civilization was ending, she said, her patterns shifting through colors that matched the holographic displays. But instead of trying to preserve their technology or their military power, they chose to preserve their humanity. Or their equivalent of humanity, Lucas corrected, making notes that combined medical observations with personal insight. Look at your patterns, Princess. You're synchronizing with their emotional recordings. Liana's bioluminescence had indeed begun matching the rhythms of the holographic displays, her natural empathy creating harmony with alien technology designed to preserve the emotional essence of a dead civilization. It was exactly the kind of connection Lucas had been documenting in his journal. Her ability to honor the memory of beings she'd never met. This is incredible, she said, moving through the chamber like she was dancing with ghosts. I can feel their memories. Not just see them, actually experience the emotional resonance they built into their preservation matrix. Their exploration was interrupted by footsteps echoing from the corridor they'd just traversed. Dr. Helena Vance entered the chamber with several expedition security personnel, her expression showing the kind of focused intensity that Lucas recognized as potentially problematic. Princess, Dr. Vance said, her voice carrying authority that hadn't been present during routine archaeological briefings. Step away from the alien technology. We're implementing immediate containment protocols. Containment protocols? Lyanna asked, her patterns shifting to what Lucas knew indicated confusion mixed with concern. Dr. Vance, this is the greatest xenoarchaeological discovery in galactic history. We need to document everything before. Before what, Princess? Dr. Vance interrupted, signaling to her security team with movements that made Lucas's medical training flag potential threat indicators. Before you accidentally trigger systems we don't understand. Before alien technology influences your judgment. Lucas found himself stepping between Dr. Vance and Princess Lyanna, his protective instincts overriding diplomatic protocols. Dr. Vance, the princess's research methods are what made this discovery possible. Her approach to alien technology has proven both safe and effective. Her approach, Dr. Vance said coldly, is compromising expedition security. We have protocols for handling potentially dangerous alien systems. Protocols that would destroy everything the builders tried to preserve, Lyanna said, her voice carrying the royal authority that Lucas had rarely heard her use. This isn't dangerous technology, Dr. Vance. It's a cultural memorial. A cultural memorial worth billions of credits to private collectors, Dr. Vance replied, and Lucas felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place with the precision of medical diagnosis. Private collectors, he said, understanding dawning with uncomfortable clarity. Dr. Vance, you're not here to contain alien technology. You're here to steal it. The security personnel raised their weapons with practiced efficiency, transforming the chamber of preserved memories into what appeared to be a very expensive tomb. Dr. Vance's expression showed the kind of cold calculation that Lucas recognized from dealing with people who decided that moral considerations were obstacles to professional advancement. The expedition has been monitoring Princess Lyanna's interactions with alien technology for months, Dr. Vance explained with the patience of someone delivering a lecture. Her unique bioelectric compatibility makes her invaluable for activating dormant systems throughout the galaxy. You've been using me, Lyanna said, her patterns shifting through colors that Lucas had never seen before, combinations that suggested betrayal mixed with anger. We've been utilizing your natural abilities, Dr. Vance corrected. Unfortunately, your royal connections and ethical concerns make long-term cooperation complicated. Lucas looked at his journal, still open to observations about Princess Lyanna's research methods, and realized that his private documentation had accidentally provided Dr. Vance with detailed analysis of exactly how to exploit Lyanna's empathic responses to alien technology. You read my journal, he said, pieces of the conspiracy assembling like medical symptoms pointing toward a diagnosis. You've been using my observations to predict and manipulate her interactions with archaeological sites. Your documentation of the princess's methods has been quite valuable, Dr. Vance agreed. Though we won't be needing either of your services after today. The ancient preservation system seemed to respond to the threat, holographic displays shifting from peaceful daily life to what appeared to be defensive configurations. The chamber's crystalline walls began generating energy patterns that made Lucas's medical scanners register readings he'd never encountered. Princess, he said urgently, the preservation system is trying to protect its cultural memories. Can you communicate with it? Lyanna's patterns synchronized with the chamber's defensive protocols, her natural empathy creating harmony with alien technology that had been designed to safeguard the emotional essence of an entire civilization. Lucas watched her work with the same fascination he'd been documenting for months, but now his observations were providing real-time guidance for the most important archaeological interaction in galactic history. It's not just preserving their memories, she said, her voice carrying wonder despite the weapons trained on them. It's learning from us. The system is adapting based on our emotional responses, creating new preservation protocols that include human and celestian experiences. Fascinating, Dr. Vance said, raising her own weapon. We'll be sure to include that in our research notes. The chamber's defensive systems activated with the kind of elegance that suggested the ancient builders had understood that the most effective protection was often the most beautiful. Lucas grabbed Princess Lyanna's hand as energy fields began isolating them from Dr. Vance's team, the alien technology apparently deciding that some threats required immediate neutralization. Looks like we're about to find out if ancient alien preservation systems have protocols for dealing with treasure hunters, Lucas said, watching Dr. Vance's confident expression shift toward concern as her weapons proved ineffective against crystalline energy shields. They do, Lioness said, her patterns now fully synchronized with the chamber's defensive matrix. And according to the cultural memories I'm accessing, they're not particularly gentle with people who threaten their preserved heritage. The ancient preservation system's defensive protocols activated with the kind of elegant efficiency that suggested the builders had encountered treasure hunters before and developed comprehensive solutions for the problem. Crystalline energy fields isolated Dr. Vance and her security team while holographic displays began documenting their hostile intentions with the thoroughness of a civilization that valued complete historical records. This is impossible, Dr. Vance said, her weapons proving as effective against alien energy shields as harsh language against a plasma storm. The technology has been dormant for millennia. The technology has been waiting, Princess Lioness corrected, her bioluminescent patterns now fully synchronized with the chamber's preservation matrix. Waiting for someone who could appreciate what it was designed to protect. Lucas watched the interaction with fascination that combined his medical training with months of careful observation. The alien system wasn't just responding to Lioness's bioelectric signatures, it was learning from her emotional approach to archaeological preservation, adapting its protocols based on her natural empathy for lost civilizations. Princess, he said, consulting his journal entries while monitoring the developing situation, according to day 756, you always try to understand the emotional context behind archaeological discoveries before making decisions about their preservation. The builders were facing extinction, Lioness said, her patterns shifting through colors that matched the holographic records surrounding them. They chose to preserve their cultural essence rather than their military power. The preservation system is programmed to recognize and protect beings who share that priority. Dr. Vance's expression cycled through frustration, anger, and what appeared to be growing desperation as her carefully orchestrated theft evolved into comprehensive failure. You don't understand the value of what you're protecting. This technology could revolutionize interstellar archaeology. By selling it to private collectors who would dismantle it for profit, Lucas said, his understanding of the conspiracy now complete. Dr. Vance, you've been using expedition resources to identify valuable alien technology for black market sales. I've been ensuring that significant discoveries reach people who can properly utilize them, Dr. Vance replied with the kind of rationalization that Lucas recognized from treating people who'd convinced themselves their harmful actions were justified. The preservation system's response was immediate and comprehensive. Holographic displays began showing detailed records of Dr. Vance's communications with off-world buyers, her manipulation of expedition resources, and her systematic exploitation of Princess Lioness's archaeological abilities. The ancient technology had apparently decided that complete documentation was the most effective form of justice. The system is creating permanent records, Lioness said with something approaching awe. Not just of Dr. Vance's crimes, but of everything, our discoveries, our interactions, our emotional responses to their cultural memories. It's adding us to their preservation matrix, Lucas realized, watching holographic displays begin incorporating images of their own archaeological work. They're preserving our experience of discovering their civilization. The chamber's energy patterns shifted as the preservation system completed its analysis of the current situation. Dr. Vance and her security team found themselves enclosed in what appeared to be holding fields designed for long-term containment, while Lucas and Princess Lioness remained free to interact with the cultural memory banks. The system has determined that we represent the same values as the original builders, Lioness said, her patterns now showing colors that Lucas had never seen but somehow understood meant profound connection. We're being invited to become guardians of their preserved heritage. Guardians how? Lucas asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. By continuing what they started, she said, moving through the chamber with the same respectful attention he'd documented for months. Preserving not just technology or artifacts, but the emotional essence of civilizations. Making sure that beings who created beauty and kindness are never truly forgotten. Lucas looked at his journal, filled with months of observations about Princess Lionna's dedication to honoring lost cultures, and realized that his private documentation had accidentally identified someone the ancient builders would have recognized as a kindred spirit. "Princess," he said, "I think they're offering us something unprecedented." "What?" "Partnership. The preservation system isn't just alien technology, it's a collaborative framework for protecting cultural memory across species and time periods. They want us to help expand their mission." Lionna's patterns shifted through colors that suggested excitement mixed with profound responsibility. "We could establish preservation protocols for contemporary civilizations. Create cultural memory banks that would survive even if their builders didn't." Working together, Lucas added, understanding dawning as he processed the implications. "Your archaeological expertise and empathic abilities, combined with documentation methods that capture not just facts but emotional context." The holographic displays around them began showing potential futures. Archaeological sites throughout the galaxy equipped with preservation matrices, cultural memories maintained across generations, the kind of collaborative heritage protection that could survive any catastrophe. "It would mean leaving the expedition," Lionna said, her voice carrying the weight of a decision that would reshape her entire life. "Establishing new research protocols, working outside conventional archaeological frameworks." "It would mean working together," Lucas corrected. "Professionally and personally. If you're interested in that kind of partnership." She turned to face him directly, her violet eyes reflecting the chamber's crystalline light while her bioluminescent patterns settled into colors that Lucas finally recognized as happiness. "Lucas, reading your journal was the first time I understood how much I'd been missing human connection while focusing on archaeological work. And discovering this preservation system was the first time I understood how much my feelings for you could enhance rather than compromise our professional collaboration," he replied. Dr. Vance's voice carried from within her containment field, tinged with the bitter frustration of someone whose carefully orchestrated plans had collapsed completely. "You're making a mistake. That technology belongs in proper research institutions, not with romantic archaeologists playing at being cultural guardians. The technology belongs with people who understand that some things are more valuable than profit," Lionna said, her royal authority evident despite her gentle tone. "People who believe that preserving beauty and kindness is worth more than extracting resources." The preservation system's final judgment manifested as transportation fields that would deliver Dr. Vance and her team to planetary authorities for processing, while simultaneously offering Lucas and Lionna access to the complete cultural memory banks of an entire civilization. "So," Lucas said, watching the ancient technology prepare to entrust them with millennia of preserved heritage, ready to become the galaxy's first collaborative cultural preservation team. "Ready," Lionna said, her patterns showing colors that suggested deep contentment mixed with anticipation. "Though I have one request." "What?" "Keep writing in your journal. The preservation system is learning from your documentation methods, and I think your observations about emotional context could revolutionize how we approach archaeological preservation." "Our observations," Lucas corrected, offering her the journal. "This works better as a collaborative effort." 6 months later, the Blackwood Starweaver Cultural Preservation Initiative had established memory banks on 12 different worlds, using Princess Lionna's empathic abilities combined with Lucas's documentation techniques to create the most comprehensive cultural heritage protection program in galactic history. Their personal relationship had evolved alongside their professional partnership, built on mutual respect and the revolutionary discovery that sometimes the most important archaeological work happened when professional expertise and personal connection combined in ways that honored both the past and the future. Their shared journal now contained not just Lucas's original observations, but Lionna's technical analyses and their collaborative discoveries about the emotional essence of civilization itself. They had become, in the words of the ancient preservation system, guardians of memory, who understood that the most valuable treasures were the ones that made sure beautiful things were never truly lost. The former Dr. Vance, meanwhile, had discovered that attempting to steal from an advanced alien preservation system resulted in comprehensive documentation that made conviction on multiple charges of archaeological theft remarkably straightforward. The galaxy's black market artifact trade had learned that some technologies were protected by civilizations with very long memories and very thorough record-keeping capabilities. The ancient ruins of Viridian Prime had become a pilgrimage site for archaeologists throughout the galaxy, not just for the preservation technology, but for what it represented, the possibility that cultural memory could survive any catastrophe if enough people cared to protect it. Personal Journal, Day 1095, Lucas wrote while Lyanna added her own notes about the emotional resonance patterns they discovered in newly activated sites. Today we successfully established communication with a preservation matrix on Kepler-9 that's been maintaining the cultural memories of a civilization that died out 3,000 years ago. Lyanna's bioluminescent patterns synchronized with their memory banks immediately, like she was greeting old friends. Lyanna looked up from her analysis of alien preservation protocols and smiled, the expression he'd finally learned to document correctly, though now he understood it was meant for him rather than observed from a distance. Are you recording our archaeological discoveries or our relationship development? Both, Lucas admitted. Though I'm finding that they're not really separate categories anymore. Excellent research methodology, she agreed, then leaned over to add a note in the margin. Subject continues to demonstrate superior observational skills. Recommend indefinite continuation of collaborative documentation project. She paused in her writing and looked at him with the expression that had started this entire adventure. Lucas? Yes. I'm glad my royal security protocols are comprehensive enough that no one else could access that journal. Even though it led to conspiracy, betrayal, and nearly getting us killed by alien preservation systems. Especially because of that, Lyanna said, her patterns shifting to colors that indicated deep contentment. The best discoveries usually involve some risk of catastrophic failure. Besides, I learned that someone had been paying attention to me as a person rather than just a political figure. Outside their research station's windows, the stars of the outer rim sparkled with possibilities that no conventional archaeological survey had ever imagined. Somewhere among those distant suns, other preservation matrices waited to share the memories of civilizations that had chosen beauty over power, connection over conquest. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor about bringing people together, even if it required plasma storms, ancient alien technology, and accidental exposure of private journals to make it happen. Their shared documentation now served as the foundation for a new kind of archaeology, one that preserved not just artifacts but the emotional connections that made civilizations worth remembering. And sometimes, late at night when they worked by the light of distant stars, Lucas would catch Lyanna humming those same ancient lullabies to newly discovered ruins, comforting whatever echoes might still linger in stones that had witnessed both love and loss across the vastness of space and time.